Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I wouldn't be concerned about what we're seeing with the AOC, Bernie Sanders rallies. They're essentially trying to mimic the playbook of the MAGA movement. They ignored it. The Democrat Party in general had made their pick. They ostracized Bernie, even though he was the populist element, even they're communists, but he was the populist element that they had in their party, and they ostracized him in both of the presidential races he was in, and forced him to be a background player, which alienated his supporters. And they would have probably done better if they had went with him. They still don't have the kind of numbers that it takes to win elections in the United States. Bernie Sanders is an outright communist, been a socialist, polite term socialist, for a very long time. And of course, AOC, she's an outright socialist. But they were kind of regulated to the background players in favor of institutionalized Democrats, because what they wanted to do is disguise their Marxism, their embrace of that philosophy, behind polite society and orthodox politics. And they went with people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton that were friendly to Marxism and socialism, but could put the mask on that the mainstream media could feel good about and not have Americans scared of who they really were. And now that Trump's won, they're taking this rally tour to try and mimic the MAGA movement and build up momentum, regain traction for the Democrat Party. And they're looking like they have success, but you have to understand the optics of it. Kamala Harris was able to have some success in the college towns where Marxism has openly been taught, big city, densely packed areas. But I've been to lots of Trump rallies, lots of Trump events, and I can tell you Trump could fill up 20,000 people in a cornfield, where these guys never will be able to do that. They're never going to be able to hit the hot button. They can only create an illusion. It's all they have as far as options. They're never going to be able to fully utilize the kind of populism that the MAGA movement was able to enjoy. So I wouldn't be too concerned, even though people are kind of like, oh my gosh, look at the crowds. Oh no, got to look over our backs. That's a kind of a typical Republican standpoint, that flights before it fights. And what you got to do here is fight. You got to continue the fight. You got to continue to build the party politics with success. And as I've said all along, the Democrat Party they lost their brand, they destroyed themselves, and they're never coming back. I said that around 2017 and 2018, that by the middle of the next decade, the Democrat Party would probably be extinct. And look what's happening. Exactly what I said. And how did I know? Because the math adds up. You do dumb things, make dumb decisions, they add up to failure. And the Democrat Party certainly has done that. All the things I said they would do, and they've lost their branding completely, and now they're turning to outright socialism, Marxism, in order to stay relevant. This is how parties get destroyed, whether you're going from Federalists to Whigs, or how the Republican Party evolved over the years. It was reinvented by President Lincoln after a series of failures. This is where the Democrat Party is because they made bad decisions. And Bernie Sanders, crazy Bernie, like Trump always called him, they're looking around wondering, how the heck did we get here? And they're trying to mimic what the MAGA movement did, and hope that they can maintain some relevancy with two of the people who most represent where the Democrats are: open communists, Marxists, socialists. And that's Ocasio-Cortez and, of course, Bernie Sanders. And there's others, of course, out there, but they haven't quite figured out how to turn off the radical button to scare away Americans, and they're obviously going out and trying to mimic that populist message in a way that people can latch onto. But the kind of people who are going to the rallies are experimental Marxists off college campuses who have been taught from kindergarten that Marxism is the future and that socialism is the way government should operate. States run everything, and you people just contribute whatever you can. And if you can't contribute much, then you can take some, because everybody's equal and everything's supposed to be fair, and the power of government will make it so. And that's what the Democrats have always been. It's just now they don't have the polite mantra to sell it. So I think the solution to the whole thing, first of all, they don't have the numbers now. They will probably do better in the next elections, because anyone who's sitting on the sidelines because Kamala wasn't very good, or people were tired of Joe Biden, anybody who's kind of soft-shelled Marxism in the background and wanted the free paychecks that the government can give out, they're supportive of these things, and they will vote. So they're going to get up off the couch and go engage in the next elections. So you have to watch for that in 2028. You got to certainly watch that. You got to watch that for 2026 and 2028. And the way I say is best to deal with that kind of problem is to get your elections under control. There was a lot of election fraud in 2024. There would be a lot more Senate seats. There would be a lot more House seats if we didn't let some of those California districts steal elections. There was a lot of election fraud. Close races probably weren't as close as they showed, because there was so much election fraud in the voting system. So you can't take your eye off the ball. You got to continue to deal with reality, and that is our elections have been tampered with for many years, and that's the only way Democrats have stayed close. And when they point and say, look at all the people showing up to see Bernie Sanders talk, look at how great it is. Well, they're in cities, and they're in places like college campuses where there's high density people, and a certain percentage of people who will show up and get free pot in the waiting line from other people. Like, there's people who like that, those stringy-haired hippie types that show up and go to rock concerts and grunge concerts all the time. That doesn't mean that they are engaged voters who are going to run our republic. I'd say the math is definitely not in their favor by any means, because even with the Trump rallies, there were people who went to Trump rallies, and there were people who didn't want to wait in line for the Trump rallies. And they go out and engage. They were high utilized voters, and Democrats are going to struggle to find them. And this method has shown results that look good for the cameras, but the practicality of it actually being boots on the ground is a whole nother matter. And I'd say they don't have it. And the way to assure that they never get it is to make sure you reform elections. Make sure that they can't cheat, take away their ability to cheat. One vote, one person. You can't have dead people and people who've been out there on the voter rolls for 150 years voting. You get rid of all that stuff, have voter ID, all the things that we've talked about doing. You do those things, and you'll have a much more honest election system, and the Democrats will not be able to regain ground. And I think you can assure that they won't be able to gain seats in the House, and will maintain the House as Republicans. If you can get voter engagement, the voter rules under control, so that actual people are voting, Democrats are going to struggle. And they're trying to stop the bleeding with these rallies, fight the oligarch rallies, which is essentially no different than what Lenin did in Russia, and they're going back to the old playbook, and they're trying to copy what worked for Trump and sell an obvious communist message, because now the scab's been ripped off. Everybody knows what they are. Democrats can't hide anymore with polite candidates that can say, well, that guy's a person of color, so you should vote for him, but he's a racist, but he's a Marxist. Nope, you're a racist if you don't vote for him. That kind of game isn't going to work anymore, so they have to be who they really were, and they were always communists, Marxists, and socialists. And that's why Bernie Sanders is now the leading advocate, the only person left in the Democrat Party to go voice their position. And Ocasio-Cortez always has been. As just a bartender from New York that had socialist tendencies from the very beginning, like a lot of those college kids do, that are at these universities and going to these rallies thinking that they were going to not have to work too hard in college and get an easy paycheck from the government, because that's what socialism was taught to them since they were in grade school, and they got the participation trophy for for not doing a whole lot. The school experience was more of a social interaction than actually learning anything. It was useful skills that they could apply to life, because why would they learn them if they didn't need to? That's why they're going to these rallies, because the world that they thought they were going to get has been shaken and upside down. As they get older, they'll realize that that was a stupid idea. When you get to be older, you learn that socialism, Marxism, communism doesn't work too well, and people by the time they get in their 30s and 40s are done with it. But when you're a young kid, it sounds like a great idea, because it means that big scary world you're growing up into from being a little child that was cared by your parents, being cared by the government is appealing when you're timid and coming of age. So of course they go to the rallies and listen to all these big government programs and the hate the rich mantras that the communist Bernie Sanders utters. But that doesn't mean that they're going to turn into engaged voters. If you fix the voter rolls and make it so that people can vote honestly, you'll find that Republicans maintain control and power for the next 20 years. But you got to take away their ability to cheat. Otherwise, the illusion can give them false confidence, which is what the strategy is with this. And that's all it really comes down to. They don't really have the kind of power that the TV cameras are trying to show you. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Have a good day. See you later.